Let's talk a little bit about sight picture. Let's start with the pistol. What you want on a pistol for sights is this right here. I just drew it up on a board so you could see it. What you want, this is your front post, this is your rear sight. What you want is this front post even with the rear sight. You want it even on both sides, and when you sight that pistol in, what you want is that shot to hit right at the top of that post. Now, one of the things with single action pistols is they don't have movable sights. So you say, well, my gun's not shooting on, what do you do? Well, you have some options. All single action pistols from the factory are going to shoot low. And they do that on purpose because if they shot high, there's no way to fix that other than replace the front sight, which is a long process. So they all shoot a little low from the factory. So what you need to do is go to the range, sit down on a bag or fold up a coat or whatever, and just set up at 10 yards and take your pistol and start shooting at a dot. It's going to shoot low. Take a file and just start filing the front sight until you bring that shot up to where you want it. Another thing, most of them from the factory, is this spot on the rear sights right here. They're usually very narrow and gives you very little room to see the target behind. And for fast shooting, what you want is an opened rear sight. I personally like at least about 40 thousandths over what the front sight is. So for instance, if the front sight is 100 thousandths, I want that rear sight 140 thousandths. And if your gun's shooting a little left or right at the range, you can take a file and you can actually file it open one side or the other to move the left-right. Or you can send it to a smith that can turn the barrel for you to get it shooting on. But the gun needs to be sighted in, because what that does, if I have a good sight picture, if that's the target right here, of course if I shoot that shot, it's going to hit the center of it. Now, as I'm shooting quick, if I have a good sight picture, if my gun is right here and I have a good sight picture and my gun is sighted in, I can break that shot right here. I don't have to shoot at the center of the target every single time. In cowboy action shooting, most of the time the targets are large and they're close. And how fine a sight you need to take is relevant to the size and the distance of that target. There are some matches that you'll go to that have 24-inch by 24-inch pistol targets, and they may be setting at 4 or 5 yards. If they are, I don't need that perfect sight picture to shoot it quick. What I need is just to find the front post and get on. If I'm shooting like these targets are 12-inch targets that I shoot here, if I'm shooting them at 10, 12 yards, well then I need to take a finer sight picture to make sure I hit those targets. So sight picture, or how fine a sight picture you need to take, is absolutely relevant to the size and distance of that target. So this is the perfect sight picture, and this is what you want to strive for in most cases. On a rifle, what we like, the majority of the shooters, is a flat top sight like this with a large bead on the front and keep it shined up to where you can really see it. Some people like brass, some people like white front sights. I personally like the brass because I like the sun shining off of it. It just picks up the reflection a lot better. And let me explain to you why I personally like a flat top sight. A lot of these rifles will come with what they call a buckhorn sight. Let's go back to the board here. What a buckhorn sight is, it just has what I call rabbit ears on it, up here like this. And in a rifle configuration, of course, then you're going to have your bead in here. Same thing on a rifle, you want that shot to break right at the very top of that bead. What this buckhorn sight does, as you're moving from target to target to target, this little rabbit ear right here, as I'm moving in towards this target, this gives me a momentary blink that just hides the target as it's coming into it. So I like to get rid of these altogether right here. So as I'm moving from target to target, I can always come into the target itself and see it. It's never hidden from me. On a shotgun, what you like on a shotgun, myself, I've replaced this bead with a little bit larger bead, same thing. That's just so I can see it For the distance we shoot, you may not even need the bead, but I do use it. The number one problem people have with the shotgun is shooting over the target. So when you mount that shotgun, you want to make sure that you get your head down on it and sight right straight down the barrel. The most common thing that you'll see is people have their head raised up just a little bit. And when you raise your head up and you put the bead on the target, you're shooting the gun at this angle. And what that causes, of course, is for you to shoot over the target because your eye is up here and you're looking at the bead. So you want to make sure you get your eye down to look down it. I personally hold a 6 o'clock hold on the shotgun targets. If you have a shotgun target, call this a shotgun target right here, I'll hold that bead right down here in the bottom of it or the base of it. So if I do anything, I'm going to have my head up a little bit because we're shooting quick. So what that does is give me plenty of room for that shot pattern to get on the target. If it hits right here, it'll take it down. But if it hits up in here, it allows me a room for error, is what it does. So that's real important. The next thing you need to make sure before you start any of this shooting is that you know what dominant eye is and which one you are. There's a couple of ways that you can figure out what your dominant eye is. One of them is just simply look at something like a light switch and just point at it. Then close your left eye and close your right eye and see which one, your finger, which is left or right pointing at it. Another way is to make a triangle and then look at something through that triangle. Then close your left eye and close your right eye. Same thing. Whichever one's looking through the center of that triangle, that's your dominant eye. So you definitely need to know what your dominant eye is before you ever get started. Some people are right-handed, left-eye dominant. Other than learning to shoot a gun left-handed, you can, I've seen in some cases, people don't want to learn how to shoot left-handed, just simply take some Scotch tape and they'll just put some Scotch tape over the glasses. That way they're forced to use the other eye. But if you're left eye dominant shooting right eyed, you're going to be missing lots of targets. So it's really critical that you figure out which eye that you want to use and which one you need to be using. Let's talk about shooting with the lower body other than shooting at the waist. What shooting at the lower body is bending your knees and using this motion to shoot other than this motion to shoot. Why you want to do that? Because if you're shooting at the waist, it's going to change the pressure on the grip. It's going to change the pressure of how you're gripping the rifle and where it's going into your shoulder. So if you get anything out of this video, I hope you'll learn to shoot with the lower body. It's going to allow you to shoot out of position as you're working your way through a stage and be able to use your legs to put your upper body in the proper position. I can shoot like this. I don't have to be like this every time. And to prove that to you, what I'd like for you to do is just set up and put your hands out in front of you. One thing you want to do is maintain the exact same grip and the same pressure on that grip all the way through your shooting sequence or on the rifle. Where if you're shooting at the waist, if you put your hands out in front of you and just bend at the waist, as you can see, this hand comes in, this hand stays extended. Same thing if you go this way. So if you're just shooting at the waist, what's happening is you're changing the pressure on your grip as you come around, and normally your sight picture will tail off. Same thing on the rifle. If you're shooting left to right, that's really most right-handers like to shoot left to right, is because when they're coming this way, they're shooting at the waist, the rifle is staying tucked. But if they're having to shoot right to left, and you're not using the lower legs, that rifle has a tendency to walk off your shoulder. So if you use the lower legs, I can start here, and as long as I use the legs, I maintain the exact same pressure. Same thing with the pistol. It'll stay the same. So if you get anything out of this video, start learning to use the lower legs. So let's talk about stance. One thing you don't want a real wide stance. It's hard to move and you're out of position. You don't want to be standing upright with your feet together, and you don't want to be leaning back. Where you want your stance is somewhere around your shoulder width, slightly outside your shoulder width. Knees slightly bent. That way you have a good solid foundation. I usually put about 60% of my weight on the front part of the feet and about 40% on the heels. What that does is give you an aggressive stance. If you got it equal, and you got your feet together and you're standing up like this, a real easy way to find out whether you have a good stance or not, just have somebody come up there and poke you right before you're ready to go. If they just poke you and you have to take a step to stay balanced, you're not in a good stance. So you want to be good, you want to be aggressive, slightly forward, 60% of your weight up on your feet. Now let's talk another thing, how you set up on a bank of targets. Now when I set up on a bank of targets, because I'm using my legs, what I do is always set up to the center at the beginning of the stage of that bank of targets. I'll face the center, and then before the buzzer, I'll just use my legs to position my body. What that does, I only have half the distance to go here and half the distance to go here. If I was set up at the left-hand target, say we were starting on it, and I went to shoot, time I get over here, I'm really bent if I'm using my legs proper. So this will force you to maybe to get into using more waist. So always try to set up to the center of your bank of targets, and that'll allow you, then right before it starts, just bend your legs toward it, and then use the lower legs, and you'll maintain the proper pressure all the way through, and you'll keep a good, flat, solid sight picture with it. So if you want to learn to shoot consistently, use the lower body. It's going to allow you to shoot out of position, but still maintain the proper pressure in your grip or on the rifle into your shoulder. This is the most important thing you can learn while shooting. All your top shooters know this, and if you're ever going to be able to be a better shooter, or if you want to improve your game, learn to use the lower body.